My name is Madison, and on Christmas morning, I found out exactly how much my family thought I was worth. There wasn't any screaming, no broken plates, no dramatic meltdown. Just my mom wiping her hands on a holiday apron, turning to me like she was asking me to pass the salt. "We sold your Tesla," she said, "and we emptied your savings. Your sister needs a down payment for her apartment." A second later, my dad pressed a paper into my hand, his voice low and cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Sign as her guarantor," he said, "or you can start looking for somewhere else to stay." No one asked how many double shifts I'd worked to buy that car. No one mentioned the nights I stumbled in half asleep from my job while my sister slept until noon. They didn't say, "Thank you." They didn't even say, "Sorry." It was like my work, my money, my future, had always secretly belonged to them. I felt something snap, but it wasn't the kind of snap that explodes. It was quiet. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the performance they were clearly bracing for. I folded the paper once, slipped it into my pocket, walked upstairs, and started packing. If my own parents could treat me like a walking bank account, then this place wasn't home anymore. I left that house without signing anything. I left more than they realized. The next day, they found the note I'd left behind on the kitchen table. Now my sister's freaking out, and she has a very good reason to be. Before I tell you what was actually in that note and how everything started to unravel, stay with me. If you've ever felt like your family chose someone else over you, listen closely, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Because my revenge didn't start with a scream. It started with a pen. The cold air slapped my face the second I stepped outside, but it still felt warmer than the kitchen I'd just walked out of. I crossed the street without really seeing the decorations or the fake snow in the shop windows. My brain was buzzing too loudly. I ended up at the tiny coffee shop a few blocks away, the one I usually ducked into after late shifts. The barista recognized me and smiled, but this time I didn't have the energy to smile back. I ordered whatever came out of my mouth first and sank into a corner seat, the unsigned guarantor paper still crumpled in my fist. For a minute, I just stared at it. My parents really thought they could threaten me into signing away my future on Christmas morning. Would you sign something like that just to keep a roof over your head? Would you stay in a house where your savings could disappear overnight because family first? Or would you walk out like I did? When my hands finally stopped shaking, I pulled out my phone. The first notification at the top of the screen made my stomach drop. "Your online banking password was changed successfully." I hadn't changed anything. My fingers flew over the screen, and after a panicked call to the bank, the truth came out. Someone had logged into my account the night before from my home IP address. My Christmas surprise had been planned long before I woke up. Anger burned through the shock. This wasn't just helping my sister. This was calculated. They'd gone behind my back, changed my password, and transferred money out like it was nothing. And suddenly, that paper in my hand felt less like a simple family favor and more like a loaded weapon. I opened a new note on my phone, the same way I always did when work stressed me out. But instead of venting about annoying clients or tight deadlines, I wrote down everything. Dates, amounts, the time I got the bank email, what my mom said, what my dad threatened. I even wrote the exact words they used: sign as her guarantor or find somewhere else to stay. If someone ever tried to call me dramatic, I wanted proof that I wasn't making any of this up. Have you ever had that moment where your brain flips from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "Okay, if you want to play this game, I'll learn the rules better than you." That's exactly what happened as I sat there with my chai latte growing cold. I worked at a tech startup. I knew about digital trails, IP addresses, and how ugly things could get when money and signatures were involved. If my parents wanted to treat me like a walking wallet, I could treat this like a case. I drafted an email to the bank, clarifying that I had not authorized any transfers and that I would not be acting as guarantor for any loan or apartment associated with my sister. I attached screenshots, wrote down the exact times, everything. My fingers hovered over the send button for a long moment. Was I really going to push this? Was I really going to turn my own parents into suspects instead of saviors? But then I saw the line on my banking summary, the total amount drained from my savings. The number represented years of skipped vacations, cheap lunches, and saying no to myself so I could finally say yes to a stable future. That was the moment my guilt finally died. I hit send. Then, for the first time that day, I smiled. That night, I went back to the house one last time while they were asleep, packed the rest of my things, and left a short, handwritten note in the center of the kitchen table where they couldn't miss it. I didn't explain everything. I just chose one sentence that would hurt in a way they didn't see coming. The next morning, that note would be the first thing they saw, and the reason my sister started freaking out. My new room was barely big enough for a bed, a desk, and a cheap wardrobe that squeaked whenever I opened it. But it was the first space in my life that truly felt like mine. No one could unlock the door without my permission. No one could empty my drawers or my bank account while calling it helping family. The smell of fresh paint mixed with instant noodles and cheap coffee, and somehow that combination felt more honest than cinnamon and pine ever had. I crashed there that first night, half expecting my phone to explode with messages. When I finally checked it the next morning, my notifications were a storm. Missed calls from mom, dad, and home. A string of texts from an unknown number that I knew deep down belonged to my sister, and one email from the bank with the subject line, "Urgent, account activity under review." The family texts all blurred together. Where are you? We need to talk about this. What is this note supposed to mean? And my favorite, from my dad. This is not how adults handle problems. Really? Adults handle problems by stealing their kids' savings and threatening them out of the house on Christmas? Would you feel guilty for walking away from that? Or would you feel relieved that you finally saw people for who they actually are? The note I'd left on the table had said just one line. I've already spoken to the bank and reported the transfers and the guarantor document. Do not sign anything in my name again. That was it. No love, no Merry Christmas. Nothing. Just a sentence that told them they'd crossed a line they couldn't pretend was miscommunication. Around noon, I dragged myself out to meet Logan near the park by our office. Logan had been my work friend for years, the kind of person who remembered everyone's coffee order and could read bugs in code like they were gossip columns. When he saw my face, he didn't ask, "What's wrong?" He just said, "Tell me who to hate," and handed me a coffee. I told him everything, how my parents had changed my banking password, emptied my savings, sold my car, and tried to force me into signing as guarantor. I even showed him the email from the bank. His expression shifted from shock to fury. They did all that without your consent? Madison, that's not just messed up, that's potentially criminal. Hearing someone else call it what it was made something click in my chest. It wasn't just me being too sensitive. It wasn't me being dramatic. It was wrong. Look, Logan said, leaning in. You don't have to drag them to court tomorrow, but you also don't have to lie down and let them walk over you. You've been carrying everyone for years. How many vacations did you skip so you could throw money at their emergencies? Too many. I could list them like seasons. Birthdays I spent working. Weekends I spent catching up on deadlines so I could cover just one more thing at home. Later that week, Grace came over to see my new room. She swept her eyes around the tiny space, then nodded approvingly. Honestly, it fits you. Fresh start. Ugly wardrobe and all. When I told her about the note and the bank email, she didn't tell me I'd gone too far. She just asked, "What do you want them to feel? Ashamed? Scared? Or do you just want them to stop?" It was a simple question, but it dug deep. What would you want if the people who raised you stole your future and expected you to smile about it? Do you think revenge is about making them suffer, or about finally choosing yourself? In the days that followed, I threw myself into work. Coding was easier than thinking about Christmas. With every new bug I fixed, every feature I shipped, I felt a little more like a person again and a little less like a walking credit line with a heartbeat. Still, at night, the notifications kept coming. My mom's texts got longer, filled with half apologies and half excuses. My dad's grew shorter and sharper. My sister's came in bursts. Panic, entitlement, silence, panic again. And then, one evening, as I sat on my bed with my laptop open, another email from the bank landed in my inbox. The preview line made my heart thud once, not with fear this time, but with something sharper. Regarding your report, we have temporarily frozen. I clicked it open, and as I read the rest, the shape of my revenge finally came into focus. The bank's email was short, formal, and devastating. Just not for me. They confirmed that they'd frozen the disputed amount, flagged the transfers for investigation, and placed a hold on any loan application that listed me as a guarantor until everything was cleared up. In simple terms, my sister's shiny new apartment was on pause, and my guarantor signature was officially radioactive. I stared at the screen, imagining my parents and my sister sitting in some polished office, smiling at a loan officer, right up until he mentioned that there was an issue with a guarantor. I wondered if the blood drained from my dad's face first, or if it was my mom who started stuttering. Petty? Maybe. Honest? Definitely. A few hours later, my mom texted, "Can we meet for coffee? Just us. Please." Grace and Logan both told me the same thing in different words. Go. But don't go alone. Not physically, but mentally. So before I left my tiny room, I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and slid it into my jacket pocket. I wasn't going there to scream or to beg. I was going there for clarity, maybe even for leverage. The cafe my mom chose was too familiar. It was the one we used to visit after school when she'd tell me I was the responsible one, the good example, the future of the family. Funny how fast future turned into funding source. She was already sitting there when I arrived, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't really drinking from. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Madison," she breathed, standing halfway from her chair like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to hug me. "You look tired." "I wonder why," I said, sitting opposite her. My voice sounded colder than I felt. Inside, I was a mess of anger, grief, and that tiny leftover part of me that still wanted my mother to choose me for once. "Sweetheart, about Christmas," she began. "Don't call it Christmas," I cut in. "Call it what it was. A meeting where you and Dad announced that you'd emptied my savings and sold my car without permission, then threatened to kick me out if I didn't sign away my future." She flinched at the word threatened. "We didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "We were desperate. Your sister, she needed help. The landlord raised the rent. The market is crazy. We thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I asked. "That my years of work are just spare change for your favorite child? That my consent doesn't matter as long as you can come up with a sad enough story?" Her mouth trembled. "You know your sister has always struggled more than you. She's not as focused. She makes bad choices. We just wanted to give her a chance. By stealing mine," I said quietly. "Did you even hesitate before logging into my account? Did you think, just once, maybe we should ask Madison first? Or was it easier to assume I'd forgive you like I always do?" Silence settled between us like a third person at the table. This was the part where she usually flipped it, made herself the victim, told me how hard parenting was, how I didn't understand the sacrifices they made. I braced for it. Instead, she whispered, I know what we did looks bad on paper, but we are family. We thought you'd sign. We never thought you'd report us." Her eyes filled with something between fear and accusation. "The bank called your father. They froze the money. They're asking questions. Do you really want to drag your own parents into legal trouble? Have you ever noticed how people who hurt you love to talk about family only when they're afraid of consequences? If your parents drained your account and expected blind loyalty, would you protect them from the fallout or let them feel it?" "I didn't drag you anywhere," I replied. "You walked there when you crossed the line. I just turned on the light." She swallowed hard. "Your sister's loan might fall through. The deposit. We can't get it back if the bank cancels everything. She's terrified. She says she can't sleep. She's crying all night. Is that what you wanted?" I thought about that for a long second. Did I want her to suffer? Or did I just want her to finally understand that I wasn't her safety net anymore? "What I wanted," I said slowly, "was for you to treat me like a daughter, not a credit card with a pulse. If your choices now cost you money, that's not revenge. That's math." My mom wiped her eyes. "What can we do to fix this? Please, Madison, tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. Sign the papers. We'll pay you back." I almost laughed. They'd never paid me back for anything. Not the car payments I'd helped with when Dad was out of work. Not the medical bills I'd quietly covered. Not the countless "we'll return it next month" that turned into silence. "You want to fix this?" I asked. "Start by admitting exactly what you did. Say the words. Out loud." She stared at me like I was asking her to jump off a cliff. "We used your savings to help your sister," she murmured. "And?" I pressed. "And we sold your car," she continued, voice cracking. "Without your consent. We changed your banking password. We forced you to choose between signing as guarantor or leaving." My fingers curled into fists inside my jacket. The recorder in my pocket captured every syllable. "Thank you," I said. "Now you can send that exact sentence to the bank's investigator when they call back." Her head snapped up. "Madison, please." But this time, her panic didn't touch me the way it used to. The meeting ended without a hug, without a solution, just a promise. I told her I would think about whether to unfreeze the funds or not. I never promised I'd say yes. As I walked out of the cafe, my mom's face burned into my memory. Eyes full of fear, hands trembling around her untouched coffee. Behind the fear, for the first time, I saw something else. The realization that I wasn't going to be their backup plan anymore. What I didn't know yet was that while my mom cried in a cafe, my sister was already planning a different kind of attack. Online. And she was about to find out that the internet loves a family villain. A couple of days after the coffee meeting, I was sprawled on my squeaky bed, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself with dumb videos. Then I saw it. A post from my sister on Instagram that made my blood boil and my lips curl into a bitter smile at the same time. It was a photo of her, my mom, and my dad in front of the Christmas tree, all dressed up, faces glowing with Christmas filters and fake snow. The caption read, "Some people forget what family means. Luckily, I've still got the ones who stayed. Family first, grateful." The comments rolled in. "So pretty, babe. Family over everything. Who needs negativity when you have this?" Negativity. That was me now. Negativity. Not the drained bank account, not the stolen car, not the manipulation, just the one person who finally said, "No." Tell me honestly, if you saw your family post a picture like that after betraying you, how would you feel? Would you ignore it, block them, and move on? Or would something inside you whisper, "No, they don't get to write the story like this"? I took a screenshot, then another, when my sister replied to someone's comment with, "Real family shows up when it matters, not when there's money involved." The audacity almost made me laugh. Money was literally the only reason any of this was happening. My DMs started filling up next. Friends and cousins sent me the post with wide-eyed emojis. A few asked, "Are you okay?" One cousin wrote, "Your sister said you abandoned them over a small misunderstanding. Is that true?" A small misunderstanding. Instead of answering, I did something I'd never done before. I told my side first. I opened a new anonymous account and posted a long, detailed story to a subreddit and a few forums I knew loved messy family drama. I didn't name names or locations. I just laid out the facts. Christmas morning, the car, the password change, the threats, the note, the bank investigation. I asked one simple question at the end. If you were me, would you forgive them or let the consequences play out? The responses were brutal and validating. Thousands of strangers weighed in. They called my parents thieves, manipulators, emotional abusers. They called my sister entitled, spoiled, a walking red flag in Ugg boots. More importantly, they called me sane for leaving. While this storm brewed online, Grace suggested a weekend trip to the mountains. "You need distance," she said, "and Wi-Fi. We can scream about it together from a cabin if we have to." So we booked a cheap place, threw clothes into bags, and got on the road. On the drive up, my phone buzzed nonstop. My sister finally. "What did you tell the bank?" "They're saying there's an investigation. My loan is on hold." "Fix it." "Fix it." "No, please." "No, I'm sorry." Just the same command she'd always used when I bailed her out of stupid decisions. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before settling on the truth. I told them exactly what happened. She exploded. "You're ruining my life." "You're doing this out of jealousy. You always hated that Mom and Dad tried to help me. You're seriously going to let an apartment fall through over money?" I stared at that last one for a long time. Over money. As if it wasn't also about respect, boundaries, consent, and basic decency. As if it wasn't about every time I'd been told to understand while they used me like a safety net. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched as my anonymous post climbed higher and higher online. People were stitching it into videos, reacting, dissecting every detail. Imagine selling your kid's car and then calling them dramatic for being upset. One creator said, "This isn't family, this is a heist." The next morning, I woke up in the cabin to a string of new messages from my mom. This time, there were screenshots attached of my story. Someone had recognized the situation and sent it to her. "Did you write this?" she demanded. "Are you trying to humiliate us in front of the entire world?" Part of me felt guilty. The other part remembered her exact words in the kitchen. "Sign as her guarantor or find somewhere else to stay." "If the shoe fits," I replied. While I was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, heart pounding with that mix of dread and adrenaline, Grace looked up from making coffee. "Well?" she asked. "Are they freaking out yet?" "Oh yeah," I said, exhaling. They're freaking out. I didn't know it then, but the combination of the bank investigation and the viral post was about to cost my parents something bigger than money. My dad's precious image was on the line now, and he'd rather sacrifice me completely than admit to anyone what he'd done. The mountains were absurdly beautiful, the kind of place you see on people's healing journey posts. Tall pines, a sky so clear it almost hurt to look at, air sharp enough to cut through anxiety. For a little while, anyway. Grace and I spent hours hiking, joking, letting the cold wind slap some color into our faces. But even with all that peace around me, my phone felt like a weight in my pocket. Every time I checked it, things had escalated. My anonymous post had blown up even more. A few local accounts, the kind that loved hometown gossip, had started connecting dots. "Isn't this about that family with the tech daughter and the party girl sister?" one comment asked. Others chimed in with half-remembered stories about my sister's past drama and my dad's temper at school board meetings. Meanwhile, the bank moved forward. They requested official statements. They scheduled calls. They asked for documents. I sent them everything I had. Screenshots, timestamps, my mom's text admitting what they'd done. I knew my parents were getting the same calls, hearing the same cold, professional voices asking, "Did you have your daughter's explicit consent to move these funds?" If you were in my shoes, if reporting your own parents could mean criminal consequences or at least serious financial penalties, would you pull back at the last second? Or would you finally let the fallout land where it belonged? On our second night, Grace and I sat by a small fire pit behind the cabin, wrapped in blankets. "What do you want to happen when you go back?" she asked me quietly. "Not what you think should happen. What you actually want." I stared into the flames. I want them to understand that I'm not coming back to be their backup plan. I want them to feel what it's like when I stop cushioning every bad decision. And I want my money back. Or at least for it to stop being treated like theirs. "So you want consequences, not destruction," she said. There's a difference. It sounded simple when she said it, but the line between those two things felt razor thin when it was your own family on the other side. I thought about my sister losing the apartment, about my parents scrambling to explain to friends why their perfect Christmas had turned into a banking nightmare and a local gossip fest. That night, alone in the small bedroom of the cabin, I opened my notes app and wrote something I hadn't let myself write before, a list of non-negotiables. If they want the investigation softened, they repay every cent they took, in writing, with a plan and deadlines. No more signing anything for them. No loans, no temporary cards, nothing. If they talk about me online, I will defend myself online. If they choose my sister's comfort over my safety again, I walk for good. I stared at the list and added one more question, just for myself. Do you want to be the daughter who always forgives, or the woman who finally stops being used? The next morning, as we drove back down the mountain, my phone rang. It was my dad. I let it go to voicemail. When the notification popped up, I listened to it with the car speakers off, ear pressed to the phone. His voice was tight, angrier than I'd heard in years. "Madison, this has gone far enough. You're embarrassing this family. The bank is talking about fraud. People are whispering. Take down whatever you posted, call the bank, and tell them it was all a misunderstanding. We will sort it out, internally. If you keep pushing this, don't bother coming back here at all." The threat should have hurt. Instead, it clarified something. I looked out the car window at the trees blurring by and thought, he doesn't care that he hurt me. He cares that people might find out. Grace glanced over at me. "What did he say?" "He told me to fix it," I replied, "or never come back." I turned the phone over in my hand, feeling the weight of the choice he'd just thrown at me like a weapon. By the time we reached the edge of town, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going to choose between my dignity and a place at their table. If they wanted me in their house, they were going to meet my terms. And if they refused, well, they were about to find out what it really meant when I walked away for good. Walking up the front steps of my parents' house felt like walking onto a stage I'd performed on my whole life. Only this time, I wasn't playing the role they'd written for me. The Christmas decorations were still up, but they looked tired now, like the house itself had been holding its breath since I left. When I opened the door, the familiar smell of pine and cinnamon rushed out to meet me, but it didn't comfort me anymore. It just reminded me how much effort they'd put into making things look perfect while everything underneath rotted. They were all in the living room, just like the last time I'd walked in on them laughing. Except this time, no one was laughing. My mom clutched a tissue. My dad's jaw was clenched so hard I could see it from the doorway, and my sister's eyes were red from crying or rage or both. You came, my mom said, standing up quickly. Thank God. We can talk about this calmly now. My dad didn't bother standing. Sit, he ordered, like I was still a kid who'd forgotten to do my homework. I stayed standing. No, I said. We'll talk like this. My sister scoffed. You've turned everyone against us, she snapped. Do you know what it's like to have people sending me your stupid post and asking if I'm the spoiled leech sister? My friends are DMing me like I'm some villain in a soap opera. I looked at her slowly. And what do you tell them? I asked. That your car magically disappeared? That your apartment was delayed because of a small misunderstanding? She flushed. I tell them my sister is overreacting and trying to ruin my life over money. There it is again, I said softly. Over money. My dad cut in. We are not here to rehash every detail. The bank is threatening to escalate this. They're talking about fraud charges. Do you want your parents to have a criminal record because you couldn't handle a simple compromise? A simple compromise? I repeated. You changed my banking password, emptied my savings, sold my car without consent, and tried to force me into a legal obligation that could destroy my credit if your project went wrong. That's not a compromise. That's theft with extra steps. He stood up then, looming like he thought he could still intimidate me. Watch your tone. No, I said again. You watch your actions. Have you ever had that moment where you realize you're no longer afraid of the person who used to tower over you? Where their anger just sounds small? That was this moment for me. I pulled a folded envelope from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. This is from the bank, I said. They've completed their preliminary investigation. The transfers from my savings were unauthorized. They're reversing them. The guarantor part of the loan? Void. Completely. The apartment is gone. The deposit is being disputed directly with the landlord, and if he wants to get his money, he can take it up with the person who signed, not with me. My sister lunged for the envelope, eyes wide. You can't do this, she yelled, voice cracking. I already told everyone I was moving. I bought furniture. I used my future to decorate your new life, I cut in. You did that, not me. She shook, pointing a finger at me like a curse. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. You got the grades, the job, the car. This was finally something that was mine, and you couldn't stand it. If it was yours, I said quietly, you wouldn't have needed my name, my money, and my silence. My mom's voice broke through the shouting, raw and hoarse. Madison, please. We will pay you back. We'll do whatever you want. Just tell the bank to stop. People are talking. Your father's clients are asking questions. That post you wrote? The videos people are making. They're ruining us. That post told the truth, I replied. I didn't mention your names. I didn't post your faces. If people connected the dots, that's because the story fits too well. My dad slammed his fist on the table. You owe us respect, he roared. I met his eyes. Respect is earned. You spent my entire savings and sold my car behind my back, then threatened to kick me out if I didn't sign. That's what you earned. Silence fell heavy over the room. They could argue with my feelings all they wanted, but they couldn't argue with the reversed transfers, the canceled guarantor, or the frozen apartment. Those were facts. I took a breath and pulled out one more paper, my list of non-negotiables, rewritten neatly. Here's what happens next, I said. If you want any kind of relationship with me, these are my conditions. My mom nodded frantically. Anything, she said. Just say it. 1, I said. You stop touching my finances. No borrowing, no temporary transfers. No, we'll pay you back next month. I am not your safety net anymore. 2, if you talk about me online or twist this story to make yourselves the victims, I will keep defending myself with receipts. 3. If you ever try to put me on a legal document again without full, written, informed consent, I will not just call the bank. I will call a lawyer. And 4, I finished, voice steady. If you choose her comfort over my safety one more time, I walk. No half steps, no second chances, no more Christmas mornings. My mom sobbed, nodding. My dad glared, but even he knew the tide had turned. The bank, the money, the public humiliation, none of it could be undone by yelling at me in the living room. My sister sank back onto the couch, staring at the envelope like it was a snake. So that's it, she muttered. You ruined my apartment. You ruined my plans. Happy now? I looked at her one last time. No, I said honestly. I'm not happy or hurting. I'm just done being the only one who gets hurt so everyone else can be comfortable. I picked up my bag and turned toward the door. My mom called my name, voice breaking. Will you come back? For dinner? For anything? I paused in the doorway. Maybe, I said. If you start treating me like a person, not a credit line. If you start telling people the truth about what happened instead of painting me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned you over money. Is this your revenge? My dad sneered. Making us grovel? I thought about the empty savings account, the sold car, the threats, the online post, the bank reports, the look on my sister's face when she realized her apartment was gone. My revenge, I said, was finally choosing myself. The rest is just consequences. I stepped out into the cold air, closing the door gently behind me. The decorations on the porch swayed in the wind, still trying to sell the image of a perfect Christmas. Tell me, if your family did what mine did, what would your revenge look like? Would you walk away forever? Or would you stay with strict boundaries and let them feel every single consequence? Let me know in the comments. Because my story might be over for now, but I know a lot of you have your own family revenge stories waiting to be told.